the coaching staff who's here. So Chad Jacobson is the assistant coach of the U of S Huskies men's. He's also the head coach of the Rattlers CEBL team. And Zenon Orobko is played at Unity this year. Was selected to be a BSI All-Star. Were you the captain this year for the Unity Comprehensive High School team?
One of them, yes.
Okay. And you guys had a great year. And you also had a great career at Unity. So congrats to you. So Zenon's going to ask all the questions. I'm just going to be a fan and listen. And you guys can kind of take it away.
All right. Okay. So Chad, why did you decide to become a coach?
Why did I decide to become a coach? Well, I love the game of basketball first and foremost. I love competing and being in a competitive environment. I love being a part of a team and, being a part of something bigger than myself. I think I really enjoy working with people who share the same passion as I do, as well as just being around like-minded people. The game of basketball has always been very good to me. It's provided me with a lot of positive experiences and positive opportunities, and I just wanted to be able to give back to the game and to share my experiences and share my knowledge with players, of all ages, really in the same way that I was fortunate to have so many past coaches, share their experiences with me. And, basically coaching just allowed me to do all of these things and to continue to stay involved in the game of basketball.
Sweet. So of those, over those years, what kind of personality traits did you pick up, or what would you say that would be good characteristics of a good coach?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm able to do as a coach, from being a former player myself, is just able to connect and relate to players. I think it's really important for coaches to be able to develop, genuine relationships with their players. It's something that I place a high value on, and something that I make an effort, to be able to connect with players on a personal level. Just being, like I said, being a former player myself, I can think back to how I may have felt in certain situations, and then take that back to players and relate to them, because I've been through what they've been through or are going through, and I think that really helps being a good coach. And I think another trait for sure in being a good coach is just being a really hard worker. Being somebody who's dedicated to your craft, and to always be searching and striving to learn and to prove as a coach. That's something that I take serious and really pride myself on. And I think good coaches as well are people who have had the opportunity to have been around good coaches, been coached by good coaches, or worked for really good coaches or experienced coaches. And I've always been really fortunate that way. Like right now, I'm blessed to be able to work with, Barry Rollick at the U of S, who's been doing it for a really long time, and learning the game from him, and so many other coaches prior, throughout my journey, who have impacted me and influenced me. So, I don't think you become a good coach just by yourself. You need to be around really good coaches and learn the game and learn the way to coach, from the people who've done it before you.
So you mentioned you played basketball. So what age and why did you start playing?
Yeah, I'm sure that my dad probably put a basketball in my crib when I was first born. My dad introduced me to the game. It was a passion of his. He played, he coached for a long time. So, I started playing at a very young age. I can remember being like 5 or 6 years old, and we had a Michael Jordan Nerf hoop set up in the basement. And, I would just spend hours and hours down there playing by myself or playing with my dad. And, So, you know, my dad introduced me to the game. He got me to play the game and introduced me to it. And it's just been something I've been doing my whole life, or, you know, been involved in the game of basketball my whole life.
Are there any points in the way where you kind of decided, like, this is the point that I'm in love with basketball?
It's hard to nail down an exact time or an exact experience when I fell in love with the game, but it's probably safe to say that it was love at first sight. You know, I just love playing. I just love having a basketball in my hands. Love being out on the driveway, in the basement, in the gym, wherever it was. So I just, you know, the moment that I started playing is the moment I fell in love with the game.
Gonna kind of switch gears here. If you weren't a coach, what would you be doing?
If I weren't a coach, what would I be doing? That's a good question. You know, I graduated from university with a business degree, and you know, before the opportunity presented itself to coach full time, I was working in the banking, in the finance industry. So probably safe to say I'd be doing something along those lines. You know, but coaching was something that I had always been doing. You know, as soon as I stopped playing, I got involved in coaching, and um, but it was more of a volunteer basis, just because of, I mean, in our country, it's really hard to find, you know, full-time coaching positions. Um, so I'm just, you know, I'm really blessed and fortunate to be able to wake up every day and be able to coach for, you know, coach full-time and coach for a living.
So when, like, obviously the game of basketball has changed so much over even the last 5 years, but when you played to now, what are some things that you would say have changed?
Well, there's no question the game itself has changed. You know, obviously there's more emphasis on shooting the basketball. You know, the three-point line obviously has changed the game. It's always been a part of the game since I started playing, but there's just definitely more emphasis on the three-point line and shooting the basketball, and players being able to do more, you know, positionless type players where, you know, 15, 20 years ago, the game was a little different from a position standpoint. There was certain positions that you played, and those positions had a specific skill set, and that's changed drastically, for sure. But, you know, one of the things that I think has changed the most in the game of basketball, and it's the technology, how that's changed the game. I think, you know, in today's world, I think the basketball is just so much more accessible to everybody. You know, during the NBA season, I guess during normal times, under normal circumstances during the NBA season, you know, you can sit down in front of your couch and watch any game you want. And, you know, just through the internet, through technology, through, you know, cable, we have so much more basketball accessible to us, and I think that's a good thing. I think it can be used as a tool, you know, to study the game and watch, you know, the best players, the best coaches, and see how the game is being played. But I also think it's maybe affected it negatively in some regards, just due to, you know, social media and technology with what young players are watching these days. You know, I think most of them spend their time watching highlights or mixtapes, and, you know, they watch Steph Curry or James Harden, you know, take step back threes, and they watch Kyrie Irving do these incredible finishes around the rim, and then they take that back home, you know, to the driveway or the gym, and they think that's what they should work on. And when I was growing up, you know, we didn't have that, right? Like what we worked on was what our coaches taught us, you know, the fundamentals of the game, how to play the game. So I think the technology has really changed how young players perceive the game of basketball.
Right. So when players, like, come in from all ages, would you say that they're more advanced because of that, or that they're a step back?
I think, you know, I think it varies. Obviously, the game is more sophisticated. There's, you know, more emphasis on, like I said, some of these different fundamentals in some regard. But I think honestly, young players come in with a lack of fundamentals. There's a general, you know, depth of fundamentals that maybe they had, say, 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
Fair enough. Do you think players are more coachable back when you played or now?
I think players are just as coachable now as they were when I played. You know, you're always going to have players that are coachable, that want to get coached, that want to get challenged, and you're always going to have players who aren't coachable. You know, regardless of the generation, regardless of the age. You know, that's more of a personality trait than I think you know, something more due to the times or a result of the times. But the one thing I think has changed with players for sure, and I think it is a result of technology, is just the communication skills. You know, I think younger players now probably don't have the communication skills that we had 15, 20 years ago, because it's so much easier to communicate now without actually having face-to-face communication or talking. You know, we can text, we can email, we can Snapchat or whatever, you know, you're doing these days, and that didn't exist back then. So I think the communication aspect with players has changed in a big way.
Oh yeah. So if you could build a player you'd like to coach, like you just like you spoke on communication, what are some other things that like would make the type of player that you'd like to coach the best?
That's a good question. I think, you know, the type of players that you know, we like to coach, or I like to coach, or like to watch, you know, build the ideal player would definitely be somebody who's unselfish, who's very hardworking, you know, a resilient type of player, a player who has the ability to lead, you know, lead their teammates, lead through adversity, and players who for sure can talk and have that ability to communicate with their teammates, with their coaches, on and off the court.
Do you have any players in mind, like that you've coached or that you've seen play at higher levels?
Who's a guy that I'm coaching right now? Let's see, with the Huskies, you know, we have a young player named Noah Nickel, who's a point guard for us. He's just finished his second year with the Huskies. He's a really good communicator. You know, he's always talking to his coaches, to his players. He's always bringing positive energy. It's pretty remarkable actually to watch him just kind of go about practice or game or whatever the situation is. He's not afraid to talk. He's not afraid to lead, and I just have a lot of respect for him because of that.
Would you say that that might be like, because obviously you want a bunch of coachable players, but would you say that too many leaders is maybe not as good as leaders and followers, or would you say that there's a bit of a balance there?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's only so much room for, you know, you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. You know, there's got to be some, there's got to be a balance. You know, you got to have the right mix of players and personalities. But you definitely want to have a good core of leaders. You know, I don't think your leadership can always come from the coaching staff. It's got to come from the players, and sometimes that can't always just be one or two players. It's got to come from everybody. So I think the more personalities you have on a team where guys are able to lead, and leading can always be, it doesn't always mean vocal. You know, leadership sometimes is just doing. Sometimes it is communicating, it is talking. But you know, it's a quality that seems to be harder and harder to find these days.
Fair enough. What's your favorite part of the game to coach?
My favorite part of the game to coach? Probably the players. You know, I love being around the guys. I love being around the players on a day-to-day basis, you know, developing the relationships and the bonds with players, the coaches, just everybody that's a part of the team, and just being able to commit to each other and work together for a common goal, and to kind of go through the ups and downs together is probably my favorite part of, you know, the game for sure.
Fair enough. That makes sense. When you're recruiting, I'm not too sure how the U Sport process works for recruiting, but what do you look for in players?
Well, I mean, for sure we're looking, and I think every coach will tell you this, we're looking for talent and skill and athleticism and size. I think all coaches are looking for that. I don't think anybody's going out there and saying, let's find the slowest, shortest, unathletic player and let's recruit that player. We want those traits. But there's more to it than that for sure. We want to be able to find and look for players who have those qualities that I talked about in my favorite type of player. Those guys that are they're resilient, they're communicators, they're leaders, they're people of high character. They're unselfish and hardworking. There's more to the game than just putting a ball in the hoop. You need to have the right people in your program and on your team in order to be successful. So, we're looking for the stuff off the court as well. And of course, we got to recruit players who are good students, who take their academics seriously. Because, if you want to play basketball or whatever sport it may be at the university level, if you're not successful in the classroom, you have basically a zero chance of playing the sport.
That makes sense. So when you are recruiting players, do you take in team system into account too, or is that just more like best player available type?
Well, I think we look for a player's basketball IQ. We're definitely looking to see if they're intelligent players and if they're able to understand how to play the game. Obviously, if they're unable to execute what their coach is, trying to execute, maybe there's something there that they just don't have that basketball IQ, or maybe not. But basketball IQ is something that we look for. Maybe not necessarily recruiting somebody out of a specific system per se, but more just as a basketball intelligence is something that we're looking for.
All right. So what to all the young male and female players in Saskatchewan, what's some advice you would give to them?
Some advice that I would give to young players across Saskatchewan, I would say, don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself into thinking that you're doing enough to get better. Whether it's in the gym, whether it's in the weight room or the classroom, I think you can always do more. Whether it's getting up extra shots or doing another rep in the weight room or studying more, whatever it is. I think there's so many players who think that they're doing enough. They have aspirations to play basketball beyond high school, or some of them might have aspirations to play beyond university. And so so many of them love the idea of being a basketball player. They love getting the gear, they love playing the games, they love being in front of the fans, they love all the fun things, all the exciting things about the game of basketball. But they're not really putting in the time or paying the price needed to reach their goals. And I just think that they fool themselves into thinking they're doing enough and that they can't do any more. So my advice to young players is if you want to get better, if you want to make your high school team, you want to play university basketball or whatever your goals are, don't fool yourself into thinking that what you're doing is enough. You got to be able to push yourself further, harder, and just keep putting in that time, because if you don't, somebody else is.
Okay, so you alluded to some things before, but if you could describe your coaching philosophy in 3 words, what would they be?
Coaching philosophy in 3 words. I would say love the game. If you don't love basketball, if you're not passionate about the game or about coaching the game, I don't think you're in the right business. And I think it's a philosophy that could probably carry over to anything you do in life, really. If you aren't passionate about what you're doing, it's less likely that you're ever going to succeed in it. There are always going to be days where, you're going to face some adversity. There's going to be days that are more challenging than others, but I think, if you love what you do, you're passionate about what you're doing, those days are going to be a lot easier to get through. I just know, like, when you're a part of a team where the players and coaches truly love being in the gym, they love working together. Those are the teams that go on and do something really special. And this game's a lot more enjoyable when you love it.
So what are some things that you do to build a positive environment and a culture for your teams?
Good question. Obviously one of the things that we try and do is just do as many things as we can possibly do together. I think teams that spend a lot of time together, off the court, away from the game, and developing those bonds, those relationships, whether it's team meals, team activities. I mean, there's so many things that you can do and that we do, but just building a culture where, guys want to be around each other and get to know each other is so important. And, we also build a culture where, guys hold each other accountable, and players coaches hold players accountable, and we're all holding each other accountable, because at the end of the day, when you show your teammate that you care about him and you're going to make him accountable, it really does show that, he loves you, or, your coaches have that love for you, because we all have our best interests, at heart. And I think developing that kind of culture is one that just breeds success.
For sure. Okay, so let's say you're a week before playing a team. What does that week look like for both the coaches and the players?
Sure. So in season, like when we're in the middle of our conference schedule, conference play, typically our week will start on, let's say, on a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday evening, where, the coaches will get together and start watching film on our next opponent. In addition to that, a lot of times I'll watch some more film later on that night, so that when we come, to work Monday morning, we've got a really solid understanding of our opponent. We'll know what kind of defense they'll primarily play, what their ball screen coverages are, what they're going to run offensively, and how they like to score. So we like to come in Monday with a good idea of what that looks like. And our Monday morning usually kicks off pretty early with a team lift. We get all the guys in the weight room with our strength and conditioning coach, and we do a workout before anybody has classes. And then, we head back to the office, and again, we dive right back into the film, watch a bunch of film, Monday morning, Monday afternoon, and then we have a practice, sometime Monday afternoon. And our Monday practice is usually lighter. It's a little bit shorter because we would have played, Friday, Saturday before. So guys still need some recovery time. Practice wraps up, go home, and Tuesday again, we'll watch more film in the morning. Practice, Tuesday afternoon kind of thing. And Tuesday, Wednesday practices are what we call our working days. So we're going to go pretty hard and longer on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and compete and do a lot more live drills and live scrimmages. And, in addition to Tuesday and Wednesday practices, we also have individual workouts with our players. So, we group them in similar positions. So, the point guards work together, perimeter players, forwards, and we'll do like a 45 to an hour workout with groups of 3 or 4 guys and a coach. And those are usually done Monday through Wednesday, in addition to practices and weight training sessions. Wednesday morning, same thing. They'll get in the gym about 8 a.m. and have a team lift again with strength and conditioning coach before class. And then before practice on Wednesday is usually when we'll get together as a team before practice and watch film. So all the film that I cut and Coach Rowlett cuts, we sit down and watch that for maybe, 15 minutes. And that'll just be more very specific actions that our opponent will run, and we'll get familiar with that. And we'll watch some clips on some of their key players, just some highlights on them and how they like to score, so that going into Wednesday's practice, our guys have visually seen their opponents on film. Thursday we practice again. It's a lighter practice, a shorter practice, more of a review of everything that we've done throughout the week. The coaches, we're kind of getting ready for, game day, just fine tuning some things. And then come Friday, we play Friday, Saturday evenings. So on game days, we have a game day walkthrough in the morning or early afternoon, and that's, pretty light, but it's more of, an opportunity for guys to get some shots up and to walk through, some of the things that we're going to do in the game, or some of the things that we're going to see in the game from our opponents. And then, after walkthrough on Friday, I like to go to the gym, work out, just kind of clear my mind for the game. Come Friday, go home, get some sleep, maybe spend some time with the family, and then a couple hours before the game on Friday, I head to the gym and get ready for the game Friday night. After the game Friday, the coaches get together that night. We watch film. It's usually a pretty late night, eating a bunch of healthy food, and we just break down the game and come back Saturday morning and have a team meeting, watch some film from the night before, get back out on the court for a walkthrough, make any adjustments that we need to make, and then go play Saturday night. And it's a repeat of Friday, and before you know it, it's Sunday afternoon again.
And back to the drawing board.
Back to the cycle of the season.
Mm-hmm. How many hours of film a week would you say that you personally watch?
I'm going to guess probably like 8 hours of film, maybe more.
All right. So do you guys have any, do you as a team or as a coach put together any goals that for your team other than winning a championship?
Yeah, of course. Obviously I think one of our goals every year, for our program, is to make sure that all of our guys are succeeding in the classroom. We want to make sure that everybody's passing their classes so that they can remain eligible. We want to make sure that everyone is obtaining the GPA that they need in order for them to receive scholarship. And in addition to that, it's our goal to have as many academic All-Canadians as we can, because we really take the academic side serious, and these guys are coming here obviously for a basketball experience, to play basketball at the university level, because that's what they want to do. But at the same time, they're here to get an education. So we're trying to win on the court, but we're really trying to make sure that these guys are winning in the classroom as well. And then on the court, of course, I think everybody wants to win a championship. Everybody talks about it. And, it's our goal, of course, to be number one. We never go into a season saying let's be number 2 or number 3. We want to win, but at the same time, we know in order for a championship to happen, there are other goals or accomplishments that need to occur. So we have smaller goals or milestones, I guess, that we want to reach. So for example, it might be let's make the playoffs. This year we want to make the playoffs, and we want to win a playoff game. And after we win a playoff game, we want to win a playoff series, and it just continues that way until you reach the ultimate goal of winning a championship.
Right. So as Nav said before, congrats on the coaching job with the Rattlers.
Thank you.
So going into your second season with the team, what would you say are some of the big differences between coaching university athletes and then pro players?
Sure, good question. I'm really fortunate and grateful, that I've had the opportunity to work with the Rattlers last season, and going into this season with the opportunity to be the head coach. And it was interesting last year, because last year was the first year that I had coached at the professional level, and one of the things that I really wanted to focus in on and pay attention to was just how different the professional players are from the university level players. And it's funny because I realized that regardless of the level of basketball that you're coaching at, basketball is basketball. You know, X's and O's, team systems, fundamentals, all that stuff, like that doesn't change. Obviously, the higher the level of basketball that you're at or coaching at, you know, there's a greater emphasis on different things, and some things might be taught differently or not taught at all, or whatever the case is. But you know, fundamentals are fundamentals. Like those don't change. You know, shooting, dribbling, passing, footwork, all that stuff's the same. You'd be surprised what you see at a professional practice, because you're going to see some real simple drills that they're doing at the grassroots or high school level. You know, they're just working on their fundamentals. So from that aspect, you know, it wasn't as big of a adjustment as I thought. But the biggest difference I would say is just the personalities of the players, the lifestyles, the lifestyle, I should say, of pro basketball. I mean, all these guys are grown men, and you know, they've been through their college experience, they've been through their university playing days, they've played professionally. You know, they just have a different overall experience. Some of them have families of their own. You know, they're older guys, and so the personalities are much different than what you would get at the university level. And the big thing too is that these guys have been coached by very good coaches along their basketball journey. You know, they've played at a high level, so there's no fooling these guys. You know, like they can sniff out if you don't know your stuff, or you don't know what you're talking about. You know, when you show up to the gym for practice, or show up to, you know, the film room or whatever it is, you got to bring it, because these guys expect that of the coaching staff, and they expect that because they know that the coaches expect that of them. Like that's their livelihood, that's their profession. So these guys are, you know, they're expecting a lot of their coaches, just like we're expecting a lot of them. And you know, the big difference too was, like I said, the lifestyle of professional basketball. It's so much different than university basketball. Outside of practice and games at the pro level, these guys have a lot of free time on their hands. Where at the university level, you know, these guys have classes to go to, the labs to go to, they've got to study in addition to all their training and practices and all that stuff. So just being in an environment where, you know, players have more time on their hands, they're doing their own thing, that was different from what goes on in our program, where we're, you know, guys' time is more occupied, everything they do is together. It was an adjustment from that aspect. But you know, again, I was really just grateful and opportunity for that opportunity, and continue to, you know, look forward to coaching hopefully this year in the professional league in the CEBL.
For sure. All right, that's about all I have. That'll wrap it up. So on behalf of Basketball Sask, I'd like to thank Coach Chad Jacobson for taking the time to answer these questions.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.